In the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, hundreds of thousands of residential mortgages were bundled together and sold to investors as securitized trusts. That the sheer velocity of this bundling outpaced a critical legal requirement, the execution of valid transfer documentation. When the housing bubble burst, millions of homeowners defaulted. This triggered an avalanche of institutional property seizures. To execute a foreclosure, a bank must prove it actually owns the debt. However, millions of these loans had been moved into trusts without a finalized assignment of mortgage. The physical proof that ownership had transferred simply did not exist in the necessary recordable form. Major loan originators, including American Home Mortgage and Option 1, had already filed for bankruptcy. Obtaining the required legal signatures to fix these missing assignments suddenly required bankruptcy court approval, a step the industry largely bypassed. Instead of navigating the courts, specially selected default servicing firms manufactured a workaround. They fabricated new, retroactive mortgage assignments, signing and notarizing them to appear as though the legal transfer had occurred years prior. Looking closely at this fabricated assignment of mortgage for the Soundview Home Loan Trust 2006, a glaring discrepancy emerges. The trust officially closed in 2006, yet the document granting the trust ownership of the loan was executed and notarized in 2009. These post-dated assignments were systematically filed in county recording offices across the country. The explicit purpose was to conceal the actual timeline and deceive judges into granting foreclosure judgments to trusts that lacked legal standing. The institutional foundation for millions of property seizures relies on structurally defective, backdated paperwork. Faced with this document fraud, desperate borrowers sought ways to fight back. Many turned to internet forums and adopted pseudo-legal defense templates, utilizing frameworks like quantum grammar and sovereign citizen ideologies. The core premise of these templates relies on a misunderstanding of securitization accounting. They argue that because a bank utilizes off-balance sheet bookkeeping, the borrower somehow becomes the true creditor holding the asset. This misinterpretation results in sprawling manifestos mailed to servicers and courts. These documents are characterized by dense, capitalized red text and aggressive, convoluted formatting. They deploy a lexicon of supposed magic words, invoking the straw man, citing UCC 3306, and demanding recoupment, under the belief that these specific phrases will automatically compel a bank to surrender the property. In the legal reality of the United States, evidence and expert testimony must meet strict admissibility thresholds, known as the Daubert and Frye standards. Theories lacking scientific reliability and peer-reviewed backing are inadmissible. Because quantum grammar and sovereign citizen frameworks fail these evidentiary standards, motions relying on them are swiftly dismissed by judges as incoherent and legally meaningless. Defeating a defective instrument requires a shift from linguistic fallacies to a multidisciplinary audit of the contract's physical, digital, and structural reality. Relying on pseudo-law guarantees the loss of the property. Survival against institutional fraud requires strict adherence to mainstream statutory and forensic methodologies. The first analytical layer of this audit targets the structural timeline of the trust itself to determine legal standing. Most private mortgage trusts operate as a REMIC, or real estate mortgage investment conduit. To maintain federal tax-exempt status, a REMIC must operate as a static pool. Loans must be transferred into the trust within a strictly defined window of time. The pooling and servicing agreement establishes a trust timeline with a precise cutoff date, an inflexible boundary for moving assets. If default servicers use fabricated assignments to transfer a loan years after the trust closed, that late transfer is violently rejected. Because most pooling and servicing agreements are governed by New York trust law, any transfer attempting to bypass this cutoff date is not merely voidable, it is legally void. A void transfer completely severs the chain of title. The trust never actually acquired the legal rights to the note. Proving a transfer violated the cutoff date transforms a presumed legal owner into a legally powerless entity, instantly destroying their standing to foreclose. The second layer of the audit moves from the timeline of the trust to the physical and digital reality of the documents, document forensics. Robo-signing is an industrialized mass production process. The rapid execution of millions of documents inevitably leaves testable physical artifacts of fraud. Forensic document examiners deploy kinematic signature analysis to evaluate pen pressure and stroke sequence. This identifies surrogate signers, copy-pasted signatures, and notary blocks that contradict the stated execution dates. To uncover invisible, overridden dates on physical paperwork, examiners use an electrostatic detection apparatus, reading the hidden physical impressions left behind on the paper. This analysis extends past physical ink to the digital anomalies embedded within securitization records, particularly PDF allonges used to endorse the promissory note. In a split-screen comparison, the visible text on a digital document frequently contradicts the file's raw metadata. If the document claims an execution date of 2006, but the metadata reveals a file creation date of 2009, this proves the document was manufactured after the fact. Institutional forgery leaves an indelible digital and physical footprint. Exposing these artifacts forces courts to exclude the bank's primary evidence. The final and most advanced layer of analysis examines the text of the agreements themselves, forensic linguistics, and the word contract method. Unlike pseudo-legal theories, this method is grounded entirely in mainstream contract law and Daubert admissible science. A bedrock requirement of contract enforceability is a true meeting of the minds. This requires that terms within a document maintain a singular, clear definition. Ambiguity arises through semantic drift, a phenomenon where a key contractual term subtly changes its meaning or tense as you read further into the document. An auditor extracts a single highly used term, like payment, and maps it across every clause. If the definition subtly alters, like shifting from principal and interest to including force-placed insurance, linguistic experts classify this semantic shift to definitively flag legal ambiguity. Today, natural language processing models can automate this clause classification, systematically scanning hundreds of pages to isolate unenforceable gaps in the text. Documenting semantic drift provides empirical proof of material ambiguity, rendering the defective instrument legally unenforceable under standard contract law. Generating this forensic data is only the first step. To be effective, the findings from all three layers of the audit must be channeled through strict federal statutes. Borrowers weaponize this information, using the compliance rules established by the Truth in Lending Act and the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. As illustrated in this dashboard, the primary tactical delivery systems for this data are the qualified written request and the notice of error. A targeted qualified written request legally forces the servicer to produce the actual chain of title evidence, along with explanations for the forensic discrepancies, under strict federal deadlines. Because the underlying securitization documents are structurally defective, servicers routinely fail to produce the required proof within the 30-day window, triggering actionable federal violations. This framework operationalizes federal compliance rules, forcing fraudulent servicers into a strict regulatory timeline they are structurally incapable of satisfying. This is the definitive difference between doomed sovereign citizen tactics and scientifically admissible forensic auditing. A successful legal defense strategy must evolve from sending emotionally charged manifestos to submitting precise, fact-based statutory requests. Appellate courts will never respond to esoteric tax theories or linguistic magic words. They require testable evidence of missing assignments and void transfers. When institutional fraud goes unchecked, the resulting wave of foreclosures devastates neighborhoods and strips families of their homes. Meticulously holding institutions accountable to the specific laws they drafted provides the only admissible leverage in a foreclosure defense.